Welcome to the second of our weekly roundups on how to buy your first commercial property in 70 days. Now, recall from the first week, we spent a lot of that time just getting you prepared to buy your first commercial property. In this second week, we actually focused a lot on getting you armed, particularly in the areas getting funding and finance. Now, when I was a national trainer, we often had online courses. The object of the activity was you go through your online material, and you would have like a small exam or a test at the end. And there's two types of people. There are those who would diligently go through the material and then go to the exam and run through the exam and be good. And I hope that's the type of person you are with this particular course. And then we had the second type of person. They were usually the executives. They go straight to the exam and have a go at trying to get the exam, because if you tick the exam, then they gave you the credit for having done the training, and quite often the training was compulsory. But we basically gave people just two chances. So if you went in there and you got it wrong once, that's okay. If you went in there the second time and got it wrong, well then, sorry, me as a national manager got the flag saying this person didn't do the material. If you are of the second type, and look, I have to admit, there's probably half the world be the second type, it's all right, because we're going to do a quick crash course on what we had on the last week. And if there's something in there that interests you, or particularly says, no, I don't know anything about that, then now's a good time for you to go back in the past week and just have a look at that material, because you will get a lot of benefit out of it. Those who go through the material and do the research and do the work are going to be really super successful. And if you're not, you may be brilliant and just do bits and pieces, have fun, enjoy it. There's no consequences. I'm not going to come and chop your fingers off or anything like that. I'm past that stage now, much more mature and gentle. All right, so in the second week, we had a look at a few things. The first thing we looked at was getting ready to put in a finance application. Now, we looked at things like credit checks in regards to also your taxation lodgements, things that you will need to have prepared and ready to put in when you do your finance application. But also, it gives you an opportunity to find a few things, a few skeletons in the cupboard that you may not have been aware of, that people who are going to be your business brokers or your bank managers are going to look at. So it stopped you from getting in that sort of area. It just gets you, like I said, prepared so that you look professional and worth that $1 million worth of money that you're looking for. And then we had a look at a few of the bit of number crunching. One module was called How Much You're Worth, and that looked at balance sheets, and that was essentially working out what you own, take away what you owe, which gives you what's called equity, and that is what you're worth. And that's one of the key criteria that your bank manager or finance broker is going to look at. And then we coupled it up with another video on how much you earn, because the ability to pay is the second aspect that is important in getting finance. So the first aspect on how much you're worth is essentially what's called as your equity. And the second one is how much income you have. So that's a matter of, okay, how much money have you got coming in and how much money have you got going out? Are you the sort of person that's basically hoping that next week's pay will pay for last week's bill? Or are you someone who actually saves each week and has a little bit left over? So we looked at that as the second module. And then we started focusing on the logistics of having a meeting. Now, the meeting that we want is just to get a budget from your financier to see if they're going to give you anything basically to start with, rather than having to put in an entire application just for them to come back. We gave you the warning of try to avoid having to put in a whole application because that tends to be a little bit getting you locked in and cutting down your options a little bit. Right now, all we want to know is, am I likely to get some money? And if so, how much do you think you'll be able to give me? And then you can go shopping accordingly. And then further to that, we actually had a bit of fun. We looked through a little bit of MBTI again, like we had in the first week. If you don't know what MBTI is, you're probably going to need to go back to week 1 and grab that missing module. And we also talked about body language, and just a few strategies, simple ones like eye contact, postures, understanding a little bit about having an even balance in regards to your meeting. And that was a lot of fun. We kept working in through there. And then we finished strongly on the week. We had a look at a spreadsheet from a guy called Tyler Coble, and that gives us a bit of indication on how much you're actually going to need to fund that purchase. Just because the bank gives you $1 million doesn't mean you're going to go and buy yourself $1 million property. Realistically, you're probably going to have funds to get a property that's $850,000. And we went through a simple but really good spreadsheet which shows you how to work out how much money you're going to need for remodeling, how much you need for cash on the side in case your first month's rent is late. We had a look at factoring in how much rent you're going to need to pay the loan you've got. It was quite a simple sort of module, but it does a lot to let you understand how much money you're going to need to get that first purchase. And that's about as heavy as I get with the number crunching, but it is an important one. Now, being a wrap up this week, I once again invite you to come along, and so I'm only using one hand because the other one hides the microphone. So, just bear with me if I'm sort of just right-handed today, which is a bit unusual. So what I'm going to invite you to do is it's contact time. This is where I get to touch base with you to make sure that you're not lost, that you are doing well and enjoying what you've got. So feel free to send me an email with a copy of the spreadsheet and maybe a link to a property that you're looking for, because your homework was to have a look at 2 or 3 properties that you look at and put them through the spreadsheet. So you start to get used to the numbers that you need to look at, and also the numbers that you may not have used at before. What about non-capitalized expenses? Have you actually factored that into your budget? So send me that spreadsheet, let me have a look at it, and let me have a look at the property you're looking at. And it helps me feel easy at night to make sure that you're not going to go out and put yourself walking on a plank sort of aspect, but rather being on a very strong foundation. Now, I get so excited with running the course that I forget to take the tags if we need to. So there's a couple here that we can take off at the end of the week. So this is a good chance for me to catch up as well. So we can take off day 12, and you can do the same on your program, and you can take off day 13, which is, oh, look at that, hidden and buried down in there. A bit of my picture starting to come out there. And you can take off 14. 14 has a circle around it because, like I said, the ones with circles are the contact days. So you're starting to make some good progress on your chart. It should start to look like mine, a little bit all over the place. But once again, it gives us that feeling that we're getting to where we want to do. And what we want to do is get our first commercial property in 70 days. Now, next week, we're going to start doing some shopping, or at least window shopping as a minimum. And we're going to talk about selecting, we're going to talk about shortlisting, we're going to talk about having a look at risk analysis and starting to work out which properties you want to have a particular look at and which ones you want to swipe right. I think that was the term for those RSVP and date sites. Now, I don't want you working too hard because this is a quiet, relaxed day. I want you to rest. I want you to relax. I want you to recap, and I want you to have a good weekend if it's the weekend. To help you with that, by now you should have received my book, Commercial Reality. If you haven't ordered it already, then you're about 2 weeks behind, folks. And I want you to have a look at chapters 1, 2 and 3, which deal with the first week material that we had, and also chapter 5. Don't do chapter 4 yet, we'll do that next week. Chapter 5 is in regards to getting finance, so that's why I want you to have a look at those 4 chapters. Alright, in the meantime, I hope you're enjoying this and get ready for next week. It's gonna be awesome, and congratulations on finishing week 2. Alright, take care and God bless. This is Peter from Bundaberg Commercial.